So one of the most powerful cornerstones of modernity is its so-called pluralistic and anti-fundamentalist nature. The truth is that the secular, liberal, capitalist state that we are familiar with in the Western world is as fundamentalist and as arbitrary and as ideological as any other state. Let me give you an example. As an example, the capitalist secular society is fundamentalist in its belief in the universal applicability of Western-style democracy. It's arbitrary in its definition of what constitutes a nation-state, and it's ideological in its belief in the absolute power of the free market. It's also a state where the normative worldview is just as much imposed on the masses, only this time more in line with the greater goals of secular liberal capitalism. How else do we explain these very blatant contradictions within the secular concept of morality? And this is really where secular, so-called, the higher grounds occupied by secularism is exposed. Capital punishment is immoral. And that's an arbitrary decision, whereas abortion is not. And, there's an infinite regress in terms of arguing either or in favor or against either of the two. But the fact is that it is driven by the strength of the narrative and not by real scientific argumentation and reasoning. Let's take the example of narcotics also, illicit drugs. That is regarded as illegal, as wrong, as counterproductive, as to be discouraged, but not alcohol. Then we get something like polygamy, which is regarded as immoral, but not adultery. So secular liberalism is as highly fundamentalist and as ideological as any other religious society. That even goes for its symbolism. You see, there's even the cross, the Star of David, the crescent and star are also replaced by other forms of symbolism. For that, we can look at the trademark. The awesome trademarks of Coca-Cola, of the big banks, of the big oil companies, these just replace religious symbolism to inspire awe, respect, and power in the eyes of the common man. So secularism is as fundamentalist as any other thing. It even has its temples, whereas the religious society has temples, mosques, and churches. These are replaced within a secular society by the shopping cathedral, where the rituals are consumerist devotions. Around Christmas time, buying the latest fad or giving the latest gift. And these are just the rituals associated with a capitalist, secularist society. One where the Holy Scriptures now become replaced by the trendy magazine or the trendy talk show host, where they preach the latest vanity or the latest pursuit for the common masses. So fundamentalism is alive and it's well in the secular liberal order. It has been a common feature for fundamentalist systems that have arisen through the eras to arrogate themselves as unique, original, and inclusive. What we see today is nothing new. Every society sets itself apart as elevated beyond and above all previous societies, and they invoke their own culture, their own blind beliefs, their own rituals, their own senseless practices as having more grounds to it, more basis to it. So to display themselves as a true model that encompasses and accommodates plurality, true plurality. Modernists seem to argue that the secular pluralist democracy is some neutral order within which all cultures and belief systems can coexist. And that is one of the proudest things that Western citizens or the perfect secular citizen prides himself in, is that they're the only system that allows multiple normative systems to coexist in harmony. Well, nothing barred this contention of its truth more than the banning of the veil in France. There goes peaceful coexistence. Or the prohibition on the building of mosques in America, which is often the case. The big lies become accepted conventional wisdom and common public opinion in Western societies. The fact is that the majority is sleepwalking and sleep-talking the conventional wisdom. And because they do that, does not diminish the lie. Because you sleep-talking and sleepwalking the truths, so-called truths, they're being drilled and that are spouted every day, every night within your ears from the powerful corporate or media, doesn't make it right. And that is what most people do, is they just repeat the lies. Public opinion in these societies, after all, a product of highly technical, very expensive processes of opinion engineering. Here in this country where I am, 95% of the spoken or written messages that reach the ears and eyes of the ordinary person are formulated and prepared by secular liberalists employed by big business or employed by the state, where the lobbyists really push the direction that they want the message to go into. So even with independent media, it is difficult or well nigh impossible to hold dissenting views to set agendas for mainstream programs. The 12-year-old legal challenge to a radio station in Cape Town a few years ago, in fact more than a decade ago now, by the South African Jewish Board of Deputies, challenging the small fledgling radio station, bankrolled by major companies in South Africa, is a prime example of this pressure on the independent voices. They can engineer mass deception, and they are doing it every day, but they will not allow anyone else to tamper with that engineering. So the analysts and experts that purvey conventional wisdom through the corporate-controlled media are members of that age-old class that made its appearance through the ages, i.e. the group of high priests that make an existence by rationalizing and justifying the ideology of the king or the state. They sell out the truth for financial benefits. They are the magicians of Pharaoh. You know, their task is to counter the correct narrative, the true narrative. Their main aim is to attack and repudiate the truth as ridiculous and illogical. All you have to do is open a national newspaper, a major newspaper, or switch on a mainstream television channel to see these high priests of the royal court peddling confusion, deception, and lies in service of global oppression. So these purveyors of immoral sludge, they also operate through the soapies and through the talk shows and through the movies, the latest movies. And every day people watch these cultural productions or material contrived for them, purveying a particular message, and they consume that alongside the news channels and the media, and that is how the mind remains marinated in propaganda. And that is the great myth of the secular society, that it cultivates a society of free thinkers. It's as possible for truth to prevail as it is for a small one-man shop to succeed opening next to a massive Walmart or game store. It's almost impossible. And that is how possible it is for your message to reach or to make any serious inroads with ordinary people. So Western secular liberalism, as it is currently paraded in all these countries, represents the grand structure of falsehood, of lies, of deception, and they form one grand integrated system. Everything about Western liberalism is opposed to what is right, what is righteous, what is fair, what is just, what is in the interest of the people. And the message it spouts is the advantaging of the elite, the building of the elite, the weakening of the masses. And that is really the aim of secular society. And yet it goes about trying to present itself as the ideal society along which humanity can reach a position of flourishing and success. And of course, that we can clearly say is the big lie.